Greetings for the 4th of July weekend. So we're actually on the back side of the White House, and to our rear, as you can see, we have the Washington Memorial and the African American Museum. Today's show focuses on primarily two areas. We're focused on the fact that, number one, there is a secret China process emerging that we wanted to review. The second thing we wanted to review today is the fact that Elon just made a really smart $5 billion decision. So we wanted to review sort of changes in how Tesla and Elon are operating and use those changes to sort of do a precursor on what we expect to happen for the company definitely over the next week as new earnings arrive, but also over the next couple of months. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Thanks once again for joining us. It's kind of nice in DC right now. It's sort of as you can see behind me, there's fencing, and then beyond the fencing, you can see the flags that are flying around the Washington Memorial. I'm choosing not to focus in that direction only because the way the sun is oriented, we're better lit this way, and you can hear and see me rather than it being unavailable. We're at Constitution and I believe 14th Street here in Washington, D.C. Yes, you're right, Bob. Today is something called the Folklife Festival, which is a free music festival that's on the mall. So DC attracts a lot of visitors during this period. So it's actually, the calm before the storm. I was impressed that I could snag a parking space and be able to shoot the show and get to moving from there. So I want to thank all of you that join us live, because I know I can see you as you say hello, but our regular viewers that are not on the live feed have asked that I delay saying hello until the end of the show. So look forward to all of your comments, and I'm going to start relisting those comments so that folks that are not able to see them in this manner can join. So the first item that I wanted to review is something that we call Tesla's secret China strategy. And so what is this secret China policy or strategy, and why does it work? Now, you can argue against some of the things that Elon Musk and Tesla has done over time, but one of the things you'll notice is that there are certain elements of the firm that always gravitate towards best practices. So I'll give you an example. As you know, prior to the Model 3 coming out, the Model S and X were being sold, and there are a lot of people that were buying, if they wanted to save money, they would buy the low-end Model S. That way they could get into a Tesla, but at the best price point. Model 3 changed what that low-end entry price might be, as well as what that performance is, and so therefore we had this occur. Now what's really interesting is basically what's happening is Tesla is saying, look, we'll make the car that the consumers want to buy within our fleet. So if you guys want less Model S's and more Model 3s, we'll make and sell those vehicles. So I bring this up in this case because what's inbound right now is the fact that at least in the case of China represents a 10% less costly vehicle than the Model 3 that's going to be produced in the United States. Now, $5,000 isn't a huge number, but it turns out that they had large numbers of Chinese consumers when they didn't have to deal with the tariff and you're getting a lower priced car. You now have a vehicle that can appeal to a larger group of potential customers, and that I think is awesome. So the question then is, why are we calling this a secret China strategy? Well, what's really interesting is Tesla is going to have a hard decision to make. Should it A, build a car in Fremont that it ships globally at a certain price point, or save 10% off of that price and have that car shipped from China to whatever the destination might be, especially if there are tariffs that might be involved on U.S. goods. So what this is kind of bringing up is the fact that as soon as that factory comes into play, we all of a sudden have an interesting circumstance, which is Tesla is going to have to sit there and say, do we want to lose money on a vehicle that's coming out of the United States, A, or B, do we want to just build that vehicle in China, have perhaps the carbon footprint be lower because you don't have shipping costs. Certainly in China, inside China sales, there's a no-brainer that sales will be stronger there because your price point is lower without tariffs and without the sort of built-in labor costs that come from being in the United States when you produce. And so we're kind of calling this a secret China strategy because we believe that what's going to happen is there's going to be this interesting circumstance, which is Tesla needs the cash and needs to be profitable. They need to make as much money as possible per vehicle, and the lowest margin vehicle is the Model 3. So I do not believe that Tesla is going to be able to walk away from the cost competitive advantage that's associated with the Model 3 coming out of the China factory. I think this is, I don't know if this is bad news for the U.S. manufacturing facility in Fremont, but I just believe it's going to mean fewer vehicles coming out of there, because I think it's entirely possible that Tesla ends up shipping as much production out of Fremont into China as possible. Now, we could take this concept to a radical end, and one of the radical ends might be, hey, what if Tesla decided to shift 90% of Model 3 production to China and then keep the Fremont plant as the location to produce trucks? So now all of a sudden trucks and roadsters could be the replacement for production volume in Fremont, rather than them having to produce, if you will, the global Model 3s, i.e. products that go into Asia, as well as products that may even go as far as Europe. So I'm suggesting this is a secret Tesla strategy, because we've all been hunting for where in the world are they going to produce the new truck and semi, and how do they afford the capex of doing so? And the question that comes up is, what if we're looking at the answer and didn't realize it? And so, very interesting question mark, because in theory, if you kick half the production of the Model 3 out of the plant, what do you do with those lines that are already ready to go to produce something? And you know, it's awesome. So, at any rate, I think it's an interesting question, and we'll learn more about this as we go into our earnings announcement coming up, and then the beginning of production at that new facility, because if that's the case, it solves a whole bunch of question marks. In particular, right now there's a big question mark as to how is Tesla going to afford to build, you know, the manufacturing space to handle the new products that have been agreed upon in production. And so the answer is the company doesn't have the money for it, but if we shift to China, you know, we're in great shape. Another note to make on this whole China secret strategy is, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's an interesting phenomenon happening, which is Tesla didn't have the money to build the China plant, but the plant got built. So how Chinese math works is very different than how math works in the United States. An example being, China offers 1% money if you have a project that's going to provide jobs to Chinese workers. And so in the case of Tesla, China is putting up call it a $2 or $3 billion factory, and the math in China says, hey, frankly, we really don't care what it costs to build a plant out, based on the fact that we have a whole bunch of jobs for Chinese that we didn't have before, and they'll be producing products for our native country. So I have to admit, what we're going to do right now is we're going to do a switch to the car because our battery's low, and I didn't get a chance to go through the second half of the show, but I will once we get powered up here. So at any rate, this conclude our sort of external view of the Washington, D.C. area as we're producing the show. I'm going to make my switcheroo here to the car. And as you can see, the White House is behind us. And we're going to just pull this out. Got it. Ooh. You can, and the pay is right here.
Okay.
Yep.
Something?
If it doesn't take money, you'll be able to use it. That will tell you the deal. All right, let us get started here. We're back. We've got power. I knew it was going to be dicey, and the China portion ended up being longer than I expected, so my apologies. What I wanted to further cover, so finishing up on the whole China discussion, let's just confirm that, this is not good. Let's just confirm the fact that once China is starting to produce, Tesla has all kinds of options that open up that they currently do not, and that's awesome. And so it's my belief then with these changes that all of a sudden Tesla is in a stronger position for many reasons, and therefore I think the potential for the company to make a profit, etc., becomes stronger because a whole bunch of money that was going to have to be spent on building factory facilities, that China facility pulls and changes how Tesla's supply chain actually works. So we think this is awesome. The next thing that I wanted to review with you guys today is what I call Elon Musk's $5 billion change. So what a lot of people have been talking about is the fact that Elon Musk owns 20% of Tesla. The value of that when the stock was in that 350 range was about $20 billion. Now that the stock is in the $200 range, it's almost a 50% haircut. So that $20 billion stake is now worth 11 or 12 billion and declining. So I've actually been very impressed to see the restraint that Elon Musk has been showing recently with Twitter and letters to employees, because all of a sudden he's in a very challenging position where there's a lot of Tesla stock. Many of the executives at Elon's level are allowed to borrow against their holdings large amounts of money to do other things, be it other businesses or just run their lifestyles. As you know, Elon Musk has 5 mansions in Los Angeles area, a school, a lot of stuff attached to SpaceX. There are other projects, etc. And he doesn't take a salary from either Tesla or SpaceX. So he's really getting these loans, and that's how he's surviving. So once you cut the stock price almost in half and his net worth drops by that amount, the stock that's pledged to, to maintain lifestyle starts to be in question. Will have to be sold in order to pay off debt that he has relative to it. A whole bunch of unknowns there. But, the bottom line is that I believe that this situation has kind of forced a different approach to how Elon is handling company affairs, and I think that's a good thing. So I'm looking forward to what earnings look like, which I think will be good, and I believe that Tesla opens up some very interesting new options. One other note that comes to mind about this whole thing is there's a discussion going on of what's going on at the gigafactory, even with the capex there. And at the gigafactory, one of the things they found out was that they could increase battery or double battery production there without necessarily increasing the footprint of that building. So there are capex options that Tesla has that are not very obvious, but that save a lot of money and that allow the company to do better. And I think that's totally awesome. We had a question come up from one of our viewers regarding what are the options when it comes to a Model S? Namely, can the Model S power your home or do other things rather than just you using the electricity? So one of the things we've covered that Tesla is currently preparing for is if you power up your car at home during the off-peak hours, Tesla is preparing a solution where you can go to the office, plug your vehicle in at a supercharger, and the local power company will remove electricity to the grid from your car at the most expensive time of the day. In essence, you're selling power onto the grid. You still have enough power to get home, and then they simply give you back your power overnight so that this cycle can develop. So this is a solution to the grid challenges of peak that is inbound and that Tesla vehicles are capable of. The other thing I referenced the viewer to is the fact that Tesla also has a thing where if you watch the introduction of the Model 3, that whole venue was lit with power coming from the battery pack of a Model S. And so what this further illustrates is the fact that Tesla has easy modifications that allow, in essence, your vehicle to power your house or to power up some very, very heavy-duty lighting. And so what I wanted to note is that if you're tweeting at Elon or asking your Tesla executives, one of the questions that pops up, especially in areas that are having blackouts right now, is will Tesla allow owners of Model S's to power their homes / maybe even their businesses using the power from their vehicles if they're in a blackout situation? Can the cars do it? Yes. Does Tesla have the technology to do it? Absolutely. Will they allow it? They currently are not allowing it, but part of what our strategy is to show is to introduce ideas or things that the company may want to consider that impact consumers in a certain way, and therefore might be considered for the company and implemented as new ideas because there's a real need and demand there. So for all you guys there that follow Elon on Twitter, actually he claims that he shut it down. Even if you're in the office, if there's a groundswell of requests in this manner, I believe it sets up well for whether or not this occurs. True. Yeah, it's a relatively low. So Roger just pointed out a home would only need 5 kW for an evening. So it'd be relatively easy for a vehicle to power up a house. And this would help a lot of owners of vehicles that are in blackout situations solve their power and production needs during that period. So excellent point. Interesting. Thanks for the note there. It was suggested that it's the power companies that are limiting the ability of the web to power, or of the power walls to power up the grid. From what I'm understanding, the rules are different for all the utilities, but advocating for new ideas that make a quality difference, I think, is a good idea, and hence why we're discussing it at this point. Before I get into my final segment issues, wanted to acknowledge Roger et al. We've had numerous folks say hello to us with comments, and we appreciate your taking time out to do so. Wow. Roger's suggesting 1 million homes could power up the grid, eliminating the need for a peaker, the use of peak, because production is pretty heavy during the, or demand for electricity is very high, particularly in 90-degree days like we're about to have here in Washington, D.C. So, that's a big time issue as well. Wanted to remind you guys, do not go to bed within 2 hours of eating, preferably 4 hours, to allow the food to digest, number one. Number two, cool. Thank you for the comments, Roger. Wanted to remind you, we're here in Washington, D.C. along Constitution, as you saw, Washington Memorial on our side here. Also, remember to try to do your 25 leg lifts with each leg with a 5-pound weight on a daily basis. We're actually looking forward to comments post-earnings that are coming up, as well as how many vehicles were produced and sold is a very big deal. So we're looking for our midweek show this week to cover those issues. Please take time out to comment, like, and subscribe. All of those big time affect our company. We're also open to suggestions of ideas, both of shows or ways we could improve our shows, and appreciate your time in that regard as well. A little bit shorter show than cool. I have an expert that we're going to bring on regarding what's going on with Maxwell. I asked him about it the first time, and he was like, there's a lot of hidden things for Tesla over 5 years that'll make a big difference, and Maxwell is part of that, even if he couldn't articulate what it was that the Maxwell difference was going to be. So I'm rooting for Maxwell to make a big difference. I just want to see what that difference is, and I'm open to being optimistic and supporting whatever it is. Just hope we manage cash carefully so the company can thrive and succeed in a great way. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Thanks once again for joining us. Tschüss, German, Max gut. Au revoir, French, Lehitraot, Hebrew, Choda Hafez, Farsi. In Jamaica, we say, enough respect, walk good man. And thank you for joining us. We look forward to your comments at the end of the show. We're also still doing a survey on possible new names for our show, and would love to get your input. Have a great day. Thanks, and bye for now.